48 heures et nous saurons, le Cameroun saura qui est le champion du Cameroun en ce qui concerne la coupe de football de Bamboutos, de Bouddha ou de Coton Sport de Garoua sera donc sacré champion du Cameroun. Ainsi en parle la presse ce matin et pour nous en parler dans le cadre de Tabloïd, SONA TAPHAHA. Good morning.
Good morning, Rose.
Alors, que dit la presse ce matin, en quelques lignes?
Yeah, la presse dit beaucoup de choses. We're going to be looking at diplomacy with the just ended 41st session of the Africa Civil Aviation Commission, which took place in Montreal, Canada, with Cameroon's Minister of Transport, Jean-Ernest Masséna Ngale-Bibehe, present there with a huge delegation too. We'll also be looking at the audience granted him by the Minister of Civil Aviation for Qatar. We would also get back to the just ended meeting too here in Cameroon with the Minister of Public Works, who was actually reviewing road projects on the different regions in Cameroon.
Nous n'en dirons pas plus. Salut SONA, Tabloïd, c'est tout de suite en langue anglaise.
Hello, glad to connect on the review of front pages of Cameroon's newspapers this Friday, September 30, 2022. We'll kickstart with diplomacy with highlights of the just ended 41st session of the Africa Civil Aviation Commission, which took place in Montreal, Canada this week. The private French tri-weekly Le Soir reports on the audience granted Cameroon's Minister of Transport, Jean-Ernest Masséna Ngale-Bibehe, by the President of the Civil Aviation Authority in Qatar, Mohamed Faleh Al-Jari, in their diplomatic seat in Montreal. The paper informs us that Jean-Ernest Masséna Ngale-Bibehe is definitely on for possible partnerships in the field of civil aviation between Cameroon and Qatar. A full reading of the article on page 2 to 3 of Le Soir newspaper. And L'Info Show informs readers that the Cameroonian delegation was received at the 41st Africa Civil Aviation Commission by the Commission's Council President. Discussions of this year's session was on innovation, resilience, and reconnecting the world. Back in the country, the Minister of Public Works reviews road projects in Cameroon for the year 2022 on a core newspaper. The paper focuses on the first phase of the Yaoundé-Douala Highway as contractors of the project complain of the challenges they face in the hands of local population, which is slowing down works. The tips and tricks of Minister Nganu Jumesi on how to remedy the situation on page 5 of the private French daily Echo News. In the same light, recommendations have been given to speed up construction works at the Babadjou-Bamenda stretch during the review of road projects. Public Works burst in an article carried by L'Économie newspaper. Meantime, the private French newspaper Nsingang reports that construction works on the collapsed bridge in Fulu, in Obala Central region of the country, kicks off next week, Monday. A bridge, the paper says, was very instrumental to the local population, especially students, as it serves as a link to schools in the Obala Central town. Some members of Parliament of Cameroon's National Assembly on a social outreach to some pupils and students in their back-to-school campaign for all. The private English daily, The Guardian Post, reports on the CPDM Member of Parliament for Ekondo Titi and the Komebalue subdivision of the Southwest region, Honorable Njume Peter, who has offered scholarships to outstanding and needy students in his constituency. An Honorable Zita Marie empowers pupils and students with didactic materials in the Eagle's Eyes. The Member of Parliament for the Ocean South constituency, the paper tells us, donated school manuals to about 200 students who did well during the last school year. Meantime, 25 teachers were also encouraged with gifts for their hard work. A detailed reading of the story on page 3 of the Eagle's Eye. Let's now turn to this heartbreaking news carried on the front page of Le Jour newspaper on the inundation in Mayo Danai, far north region of Cameroon. The private French daily says about 180,000 people have been rendered homeless following heavy rains which caused the Logon River to overflow its banks. Le Jour says the local population is calling for help from authorities and encouraging them to look into their sorry situation. In the midst of their troubles, Eco Santé is putting Cameroonians on guard. The paper reveals alarming data of those suffering from cardiovascular diseases following the celebration of the World Heart Day, Thursday, September 29, 2022. According to Eco Santé, 35% of the population have been diagnosed with the disease. The dangers and how to prevent the illness on page 3 of Eco Santé. And onto this sad page, Info Matin's front page marks the final journey of former Director General of the Cameroon Telecommunications Company, Camtel, David Koto, a man who will be buried Saturday, October 1, in his native Efulan Yetyang in Mayomesi, South region of the country. Glad to, and we are going to round off right away. We're going to close the pages of our newspaper review with spots on Cameroon's Cup final billed for Sunday, October 2, 2022 at 3 p.m. at the Yaoundé Amadou Ayijo Stadium. Prior to the match day, Le Jour newspaper brings highlights of the atmosphere that is reigning in the camp of the finalists, which are Bambutus of Buda and Cotton Sport of Garoua. Ladies and gentlemen, that's where we leave it for today's review of some main stories on the front pages of Cameroon's newspapers. Let's do this again Monday. Until then, thanks for watching and do have a profitable time in the company of programs on CRTV News.